Here's a quick tip on how to avoid that horrible, just monstrous looking underlighting. All right, so underlighting is not always the wrong choice when it comes to lighting patterns, but lots of times that's something that we try to avoid. I know I do. Now, just to let you know what underlighting is, that is the lighting that you get when the light, your main light, or the light that's casting the most defining shadows, is coming from an area below your subject to a certain extent. That's casting shadows in kind of an awkward, weird upward, instead of light coming in from a slightly elevated position, which is a little more natural looking. Now, underlighting is pretty intuitive and easy to avoid when we're shooting with a smaller light source like this. We just know to keep the light coming in from the top, as opposed to doing it this way, where you might get some weird kind of shadow patterns, and especially if you're shooting from below the subject a little bit, either this way or this way, you're going to cast shadows up, which is going to give you kind of a weird look. And even on set or in the studio, when you're using a relatively smaller light source like this, either a smaller or medium softbox, something like that, it's still relatively easy to control the direction of the light and to control where most of the light is coming from. So let's take a look at this guy. All right, let's start off over here up top with something close to a butterfly pattern, and then move it over to a more traditional 45-45 position. Now here's where we get into trouble. When we start coming over to the side and down a little bit. All right, so clearly you can see an unnatural shadow pattern going up this way, giving that so-called monster lighting effect. So here are just different variations of that, different intensities of that same look. I mean, that's going really extreme, but it happens. Okay, so now I want you to check this out. This is important. Now you can see that a lot of the light is technically coming from either to the side or just slightly above the subject right here. Here's the top of the light source right here. So the subject is definitely getting light from above. But look at where most of the light is coming in from. It's coming in from down here. So you've got most of the light's intensity coming up this way and casting shadows in that direction, in the upward direction. Now, like I said, with smaller light sources like flash units or like a small softbox like that, it's pretty easy to control the direction of the light. But the idea behind this video is to address something that I've seen other people do. I've seen other people demonstrate how to use larger light sources for portraiture in a way that I don't think really makes sense. Okay, here's a standard shoot-through umbrella, right? This is a standard size. I'd say it's about 43 inches across. And again, it's small enough to, get the idea of where you're projecting, most of your light, most of the light's intensity onto the subject. So you've got this guy here, and you're gonna do something like this, right? But you know how generally larger light is better light? And they make much larger umbrellas than this. Like, I've seen 7-foot umbrellas, 7-foot collapsible shoot-through umbrellas like this. And I've also seen where people demonstrate how to use them for portraiture, and this is what they're doing. I've seen where people are demonstrating using a 7-foot umbrella, where definitely you've got a large portion of the umbrella above the subject's head, but you've also got the 2/3 of the thing extending towards the floor. And although, yeah, you could argue that it's this big, broad light, actually 2/3 of the light's intensity is coming from below the subject's head. You might think of it as this part being the main light casting the defining shadows, and this part being the fill light, just kind of filling in a little bit up here. So yeah, while you've still got a huge light source to work with, it doesn't necessarily mean all the light is going to the right place. And all right, you might say, hey Ed, how am I gonna get a huge 7-foot umbrella positioned up above the subject's head in the 45-45 position like a small apartment like this? And my answer to that is, heck if I know. I don't know. I don't use one that big because I don't have that kind of room in a place like this. If I was in a studio with high ceilings, then I'd have more options. Or maybe if you could position your subject really low and closer to the floor, you'd have a little more room to work with above her. So really what I'm saying here is, if you're gonna be using a large light source, just make sure that most of the light's intensity is not casting shadows in the wrong direction or coming from the wrong place, so that you really want to try to avoid that horrible monster underlighting, unless really that's the effect you're going for, which is okay too. But if you're not going for that look and you want to make sure that the shadows are being cast across your subject's face in a more natural way, just be aware of where most of the light's intensity is coming from, especially from those larger light sources. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. If you like this video, remember to click that like button, give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Leave me a comment. I love your comments. You know I love your comments. That's about it for today. See you next time.